Hello, guys. You're welcome to a new episode of Beyond the Boardroom. And today I have with me a new guest. And before I go on, I'd like to acknowledge our sponsors, Genex Pizza Restaurant and Grill. You can find Genex Pizza in Sutum, Suhum, Konongo, Kumasi. So I'll call out the numbers. In Sutum, you can call them on 054 610-9785 or 026-350-6265. Suhum 027-311-3666. Konongo 02444408995. You can as well call them on Kumasi 026-859-5222. So now I'll welcome my guest, Dr. Vincent Ampadu. Doctor, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Eve. It's a real genuine pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Let me say this. It has been quite a journey. It's been ages. And as of course, and many of the people don't know that I've known Dr. Vincent Ampadu for years. Over how many years now? It's been
Almost 15.
Almost like 15 years.
15 last year.
Yes. And well, for those of us that do not know, of course, I know a little bit about you. Quickly tell us, we would like to know how it's been like growing up from your childhood, living on campus, KNUST, and we'd like to know, how did it all start?
Okay, so first of all, my name is Dr. Vincent Ampadu, and I'm a lecturer at KNUST,
Right.
the Solar Joint Departments. And the fact I just joined the faculty, I've been there for right about my first year. So I presume that this interview is going to be more centered on my academic, eventually move into primarily my academic journey.
Right.
So I'd say the entire journey, I go all the way back to 1985.
Right.
That was the year I was born.
Okay.
I was born to, at the time, he was Samuel Kofi Ampadu, my father, and my mother, Cecilia Ampadu.
Okay.
We were both, my father at the time was a teaching assistant at KNUST, Solar Joint Department. And my mom was, at the time, she had also finished her undergrad in social sciences.
Right.
So, both of them are very academically oriented. So I guess it's kind of clear where my academic genes originated from.
Right.
So, they got married in 1984. We met when my dad was a choir master, my mom was a chorister in the choir. Both of my family is a very strongly Catholic fan. That's where it starts from. So I was born in 1975, and shortly after my birth, my father had the opportunity to go and do his master's and PhD in Japan.
Right.
It was a really huge opportunity for him. So I believe it was in 1986 that he left for Japan. I think, if I remember correctly, he lived in Tokyo. Okay. He went to university in Tokyo. Okay. And he was there for about...
So you're about like a year old?
Oh, about a year old.
Okay.
About a year old. So he left for about... The program took about 5 regular master's PhD programs. So let's say about 6 years in my... And during that time, he lived in Tokyo, Japan, but he had the opportunity to travel around Japan. He learned the language, because that was the primary language of instruction of his graduate degree. Okay. So at some point, about a year after I was born, my younger brother, Mark, I'm sure those of you who know who Mark Ampadu is, he was born as well. Okay. And we both lived together in Accra. Couple years after that, my mom went to join my dad in Japan. They were a newlywed couple, so they were living together in Japan. And myself and my brother were living with my aunt in Accra at the time. So, to kind of moving forward.
We are not joined your dad at... okay.
Yes. In fact, we moved to go and live with my dad back in 1990.
Okay. In Japan? Oh, in Japan. Okay.
Before that, we did, we went through the elementary school system here. And when we migrated to Japan, we started off at an international Catholic school called CSN International Catholic School called CSN International. So I was there alongside my younger brother Mark.
Right.
We were there for about 2 years. During that time, I went to CSN International, and then I went to St. Mary's. That was the equivalent of class 1.
Okay.
So that's where
In Japan.
in Japan. So that's actually where my educational career started, in an international Catholic school in the other part of the world, in Japan. So we were there for 2 years, but by 1992, my father had completed his degree, and he returned to Ghana, to join the staff at Clear University as a lecturer.
Right.
So the entire family, at that time, it was me and my brother, and my younger brother, my third brother, came along shortly after that. And it was the three of us.
So after you relocated back to Ghana.
So it was the three of us, and myself, Mark, and my other brother,
Right.
Edward. So we lived together at Makodia Road.
On campus.
On campus. That's the first place we lived when we came to Ghana. And he started off at UST Primary.
Right.
I don't want to talk too much about that. I want to move ahead and talk about the more interesting parts. What I do remember, so far as my educational career was concerned, I remember when I came in, I was a year behind my mates. And I remember I've always been a very ambitious person. Like I never want to be at the back. Whenever I always want to be at the front. So when I came in, and at the time, remember how we used to grade, right? You're writing exams and the close was first, was second.
Exactly, yeah.
So I remember I was in class 3 at the time. I was at the back of the class because I had just come in and I was not unrated. Yeah. So I was in the back class, but I didn't like it at all. I didn't like it at all. And I kept
it was a bit confusing.
It was confusing for the lecturers, it was confusing for the kids, it was confusing for me because it was merit-based. Exactly. So I kept making an effort to let the teachers notice me that, hey, I'm not supposed to be here. So he asked any question, I'll raise my hand. So I remember there was one particular teacher, once he approached me, he asked me, what are you doing back here? He had noticed that I was going pretty well. So it reminds me of a joke, a joke that I heard when I was an undergrad. There was once this very quiet student who didn't really speak the English language well, and he had been accused of being a thief, of stealing something.
Oh.
Everyone was accusing him, and he wanted to say it was not him. And the class captain stood up, and he decided that he was going to defend this boy. So he made a really good argument to defend him. The guy just, so the young man that was being defended just stopped, and he went like, hey, In other words, it's like, listen to what this guy, he's saying everything I want to say. So the analogy I wanted to make was the fact that, when this teacher came and asked me what I was doing in the back then, I was like, I told everything I wanted to say about why I felt unfairly put in the class and all that.
Well,
but what I do remember is that it gave me the motivation.
Right.
And we see that's one of the, I know there's a huge debate about whether, whenever students are graded and the grades are put out there, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, right? I mean, I can think of pros and cons. It's in psychology we call something reinforcement. So positive reinforcement occurs when you want to get people to act in a particular manner. Negative reinforcement is when you want people not to act in a certain manner. So ultimately you want to have both of them acting to get people to act. So, the putting the positions and everything out there is supposed to encourage, there was a term for that in school, a healthy competition among students. So I do remember, I remember my father in particular, when I was really young, he was always very particular about, I think he noticed my talent, and he also noticed my drive. Right. I had this obsessive need to always be the first. It wasn't really healthy, but back in the day. And so he always helped me, right? He would call me and then he'd teach me. I remember at some stage in class 3, he was even teaching me long division, which is something that should have been taught later. Yes. So anyway, I realized that, so as the years rolled by, I remember taking an active interest in academics. It's something I really enjoyed. And I particularly enjoyed it because it gave me an opportunity to be competitive. I think that's where it comes from. I'm a very competitive person, and academics allowed me to show that part of myself. So I do remember that, it was, I think, somewhere in class 6 that I had the opportunity to be first in my class for once.
Right.
So I had a taste of power and I enjoyed it.
You enjoyed it.
It's like Game of Thrones, right?
Of course.
Like Game of Thrones, the guy tastes power and is like, wow, And after that, I just didn't want to lose to anybody else. So move back to JSS, right? So I finished my primary career,
and then so let me jump from that part from lower to upper and then to your secondary school. How did it all start? Because I know you went to Opokuwari,
right?
Was, and between that time, I think something happened. I want to know that. I think you contested for
right.
Yes,
right.
Between that was the year 2002, right?
2002.
Yeah. Tell me about it. I want to know. I want to know. I think people want to know.
Right. So 2002, I think most people who know me,
right,
who know my name, know it in association with the National Science and Maths Quiz of 2002. That was the year Opokuwari won last. And a lot of people ask questions as to why we've not won since then. There are many answers. There are many answers to that question. For me, at least, the most truthful question is, I really don't know. Because we've been to the finals 10 times. And to be honest with you,
we'll come to that. But I want to know how we all started. How did you enter into the Okuwari school? How did you get the admission? How did it all start?
So throughout my career in junior high,
right,
when I got into junior high, I think that's when my academic career really took off. Because we used to have this thing they called combined exams, where they'd kind of put all of us, tally all our results together in grade. And throughout my time in GSS, I was almost always first. So when I went to write the BEC, I wrote the BEC and I had 10 ones, all ones in my class. So at that point, I could choose to go to any school I wanted. Mm-hmm. And I remember at the time, so why did I go to Opokuwari? That's a good point. Right. So I do remember, the only reason that I remember was the fact that I had a friend. He probably, a lot of people probably know who he is. He's called Banoche. Okay. When I was in school with him, we're 3 friends, me, Banoche, and Adutam. We used to hang out all the time. And Banoche told me he wanted to go to Opokuwari. And me being the regular stubborn person, I said, I'm going to Opokuwari because Banoche wants to go to Opokuwari. And I'm not going to take no for an answer from anybody. I remember at the time, my dad had wanted me to go to St. Peter's. That's where he went, but I said, I'm not going to anywhere else.
Because of Banoche.
Because of Banoche. So, and I was going to mention I'm a Taurus, right? A Taurus, and one of the attributes is we are stubborn people. And I am a very stubborn person. So that's why, so I went to Opokuwari primarily because of Banoche. And also I wanted to go to a Catholic. Going to a Catholic school was not optional in my family. Because my family is a very strong Catholic family. And if I hadn't gone to Opokuwari, I would have gone to maybe St. Peter's or St. John's or St. Augustine's or any of those. My brothers went to those other schools as well. So I was the first person in my nuclear family to go to Opokuwari.
Right.
And I was accepted, because I had 10 ones. And in fact, that particular year, I think, if my memory serves me right, it was me, Paul, and Aubrey. We were the only students in my year who had 10 ones and was admitted.
Who is Paul and who is Aubrey?
Paul, I believe everybody knows who Paul is. Everybody knows who Paul is. But I'm gonna
because I want to find out how you got the admission to the school and how you met Paul and then
the truth is, so the first time I think if I remember correctly, as mentioned, I've always been a very nerdy person. So when I was in JSS, there were other quizzes that we used to compete in. But there was one called the kiddie quiz. Our school didn't go our year. But I remember watching the kiddie quiz one Saturday. I remember watching Paul's team compete. Paul was competing Paul and his team, I think they went to St. John, was competing against some other team. And I remember the person who competed for that team was part of, I think, Saints. I forget. But anyway, the first time I actually got to know about Paul was watching him on Kiddie Quiz. And I remember getting very impressed. I was like, this guy is very, very good. Okay. So that was the first experience I had of him. The second experience was When I met him at Opokuare, he went to Science 1. I went to Science 1 as well. We had 3 science classes back in the day. So we were there to study biology, chemistry, physics. Those were our electives. And then there's obviously core maths and elective mathematics. So that's how we met Paul. How I met Paul, to the best of my knowledge. We're in the same class, and we're all there. He also had a 10 once. And I remember from my experience of it on Kidney Quiz, thinking to myself, this dude is very intelligent. So, I met him there. We both went to the same class, and so moving forward, I think people want to know about the science and maths quiz.
Exactly.
So, I remember that in our year, by the time we got there, Pokuare had only won once. This was back in 1997, the year of, I think, Amwamo and Co. And we were eagerly looking for our year. We were looking for to win again.
Okay.
I think and we're also looking for someone to get an 80s.
Okay.
Because someone in Prempe, what was a gentleman called Kofi Odro who went to USCGSS, which I went to, who got 80s. So Pokuare was looking for someone to break that record. So if I recall correctly, we wrote a bunch of exams to decide who was going to be in the science and maths quiz. And I remember I got in primarily because of biology. I did very well in biology, so I got into science and maths because of biology.
Right.
And for 3 years, 2.5 years, those that were selected out of those who went in, so for 2.5 years, we studied together. Right. We had this room we called the Octagon because there were 8 of us, kind of synonymous with the Pentagon in the US. So we just studied together, we worked problems together, we joked at each other, we organized ourselves into quizzes. It was a very dynamic, it was virtually the equivalent of a think tank. And over the course of the 3 years, we really, really, really worked hard. Eventually, it culminated in our winning the science and maths quiz. But I think the reasons why we won, at least from my perspective, was number one, you were very committed. Like from the day we got there to the day we won, our attitude was we are going to win the science and maths quiz, and there's like we are winning. That was the attitude. There was never a thought of we could be beaten. No, that was a side thought, but it was never something we entertained. And we had the opportunity again. We had all these previous years, the experiences that we could draw on. Now I remember when we studied along with the AYs and the AZs, who were phenomenal. Unfortunately, we were not able to win in their years, but they gave us a lot of worthy tutoring.
Okay.
Right. So I'm going to go a little bit into the beat specifics of the competition.
Right.
It was sort of like a rivalry between me and Dr. Pushkin at some point. As mentioned, Aubrey was in Science 3.
Right.
So Aubrey, we didn't really have much experience with him until we were in the science and maths quiz team.
Excellent.
But I do remember that, I tried for years. My only goal, being coming from the background where I was used to being the best, experiencing Paul and meeting an individual that was probably more talented,
right,
if not just as talented, extremely hardworking, very disciplined. It kind of put me out of my comfort zone in ways I can't explain. I remember, several times, even during the exams, because I was so intent on wanting to, to do better. I remember falling sick during my first semester and during my second semester, just because of the stress in trying to do this.
Yeah. Sorry to catch you. Before we go on again, I want to remind you that we are inside the restaurant of Genix Restaurant and Grill. If you're looking for a suitable ambience where you can sit and relax and enjoy yourself, Genix Pizza is the place to be. You can find Genix Pizza on the Aprade Road, Accra Road, Aprade, after Odium. So you can call Genix Pizza on 054-610-9785 or 026-350-6265. That's the Sutum branch. And with the Suhum, you can also call them on 027-311-3666. You can call the Konongo number on 0244408995, and then Kumasi number 02685952222. And so we go on again. Please, Dr. Vincent, let's continue.
Right. Right. So I was going to make some references to some of instances where that rivalry or that competition. So I remember there was one particular problem. There's a problem in physics, and we call it the motion problems, where you consider dropping balls or projectiles from certain positions in space, watching them drop, and having to calculate the time it takes to drop, the velocity at which it drops. I'm sure the high school students know all about it. And I do remember there was one question that was asked in class. And I remember, if I remember correctly, they asked us to do it one way, and everybody in the class did it one way. And I remember Paul did it the other way.
Okay.
So the professor went round. He looked at all our examples. He didn't see anything. He came back he asked one person to draw this, the other person to draw that.
Yes. So we want to know what really happened in the Pokuwari school.
In the Pokuwari school?
Yes, I want to know what really happened.
So in the Pokuwari school, I got into Pokuwari school with 10 ones. And I remember, in retrospect, I remember both Paul and Aubrey also had 10 ones. I was with Paul in Science 1.
Right.
And Aubrey was in Science 3.
Right.
And, I remember that in order to make it into the Science and Maths quiz team, the one that you're going to train from, you needed to pass. They had us write a number of exams because there were a lot of students who wanted to be in. It was a big honor to be in that group. So they had us write a number of exams: biology, chemistry, physics, maths. Since those were the questions tested in the Science and Maths quiz.
Exactly.
And I remember we wrote one first semester, second semester, and the second term and third term. My experience was, I remember I fell sick during the second term of exams. I was unable to write the exams at all. So in fact, I was on nobody's radar.
Okay.
So the only exam that was in the third term that I wrote, I wrote the exam for the school, and I got noticed for biology, doing well in biology. So in fact, I was brought into the general team because of biology.
Okay.
Right, to be admitted to the Science and Maths quiz. And I did very well there. And because of that, I qualified to be one of the 8 in the Science and Maths quiz.
Right.
So that was, and that actually, so qualifications happened in first year, term 3. By then, we had an opportunity to take a number of courses. We'd competed with each other. We'd written several exams together. So we all knew who was good, and we could get a sense of what everybody's standard was. And that's when I wanted to talk about that anecdote from physics, because what I remember correctly was that my strength was always chemistry and biology. Those 2 courses I was really good in. Commerce as well. I remember Paul was very good at physics, in particular, and elective mathematics.
Who is Paul?
Paul Azuri. So Paul was one of the 3 contestants I did the Science and Maths quiz with. But I bring him up because we were in the same class. Okay. So I had the experience with him for 3 years. Okay. And it so happens that we are really good friends now. So, and we both entered engineering, as opposed to Aubrey, who went to do medicine.
But yeah, we'll come to that. I want to focus on the quiz. So
right. Before we get to the point where we started doing the trials and everything, in order to make a point that one of the things that I really admired about Fall was the fact that I remember there was a problem they gave us in class, a physics problem about projectiles.
Yeah.
And he managed to do it in a way that was dissimilar to what everybody else did it.
Right.
And what astounded me the most was the explanation he gave about why he did the way he did. When he explained it made perfect sense. But how he was able to get to that a priori means that without reference to precedent, it showed me that he had a really great mind.
Yeah.
So anyway, we had the opportunity throughout our first year to study, do all these courses, and that vibrant competition he had in that class enabled all of us to polish our abilities to the zenith. So first year, third term, we wrote the general exams to get into the science and math quiz.
Right.
8 of us were selected.
Okay.
Were 4 of us from science one.
Okay.
There's myself, for James,
Okay.
and Yaosu.
Okay.
And those from the NN Science 2, there was Mimo Buachi and Yuji, if you are from. And Science 3, there was Aubrey Miyoble. I think he was a weaker safer Science 2. I remember correct. There was also another gentleman from Ekmas, Amwati. He was a guy called Amwati who was also participating. So there were 8 of us. And we stayed together in this room called was called the Vrilla room, but we had a term for it called the Octagon. It mirrored the term Pentagon from, the United States security apparatus. So I think.
So now you're in a competition.
Right.
You were selected. How many people were selected for the competition then?
So only 3 people were, at the time, were 3 people that competed for this.
Okay. 3 people. You.
So, right. So it was myself, Paul.
That's the Paul.
That's Paul. So that's where Paul comes in.
Okay.
Aubrey.
His full name?
Oh, he's Paul Asunri.
Okay. And then?
And Aubrey Minyogule.
Okay. What was it? How was it? The results? What was the outcome? The results and everything, the challenges, everything. After you had gone through all that, what were the challenges? I want us to quickly move into where you had to leave Ghana to a different country. I want us to quickly move on from there too.
So for the science and math quiz, after we went to the main events, eventually qualified, went to the main events, and we had there were about 5 we had 5 competitions to the final. Any point in time, you could be eliminated.
Okay.
Again, as the first competition was DVLs. And they could have beaten us, and you watch the video online. It was a very, very close competition. And we did win. I believe we were the better side. I don't know whether they'll agree with that. I think we were. And we did win the competition overall. We met with, was Wesley, the first competition was with, I forget. Now the second was with Wesley Girls, but eventually we met with St. Pete, with Rusek in the quarterfinals, and St. Peter's during the finals. And we beat them, both schools, we beat them narrowly to win the science and arts fairs in 2002.
Okay. How was your relationship with Paul? Because you mentioned Paul a lot. I want to know, what was your relationship with him aside everything? How did your relationship grow? How did it?
For me, again,
what stage?
I brought in a lot of the backstory from junior heroes to try to capture a bit of the psychological underpinnings behind my relationship with her. It began off as a strong rivalry.
Right.
It's like when you are a child born, you are the only child of your parents, first child, and you have the second child that comes in and is taking the attention from your parents. How do you respond? Especially when you are really young and you can't process the whole thing in. And you build a large amount of your self-esteem and your self-esteem and your self-concept on getting mileage from your academic performance, right? It's not the easiest thing to be able to know how to uproot that portion of your self-esteem and center it on something less ephemeral, as way people treat you because they're academically big. And that took a long time for me to build it myself. But at that stage in the teenage years, and if you've grown up around everybody telling you are smart and all that, everybody likes you, your pastors, your parents, people like you because you are smart. And there's a positive feedback. It's not the easiest thing to do to disentangle that from your self-concept. So my relationship with Paul was very intense in the earlier stage because of what it was forcing me to confront myself.
Okay. The academics, how is it like? You and Paul, when it comes to academia, okay, that part, who's better than who? Who's good? You are good. He's good. Who's good?
That's a philosophical question in the sense that, there's a guy called what's his name? I think Gardner, which something Gardner. He wrote a book or an article on the or Howard Gardner. He wrote an article on the various intelligence competencies. There are various types of intelligence. So some of it is verbal, some is mathematical, some is linguistic, some is kinesthetic. So there's a variety of different types of intelligence. Very few are measured in a traditional academic set. Like this, a question you asked me can become a much larger philosophical discussion. But I think I know what you mean. So I say what you mean in that context. For me, at least, as to my perception, other people may disagree because I have had the chance to, I wrote so besides our experience in SSS, my experience in high school, in the university stage, my GRE and all of that, I think the year I wrote the GRE, I had the highest score in West Africa. Core had 30 points higher than me, 2006th. So, so in the traditional metrics of intelligence that are measured by these very narrow domains, I'd say Kel is smarter higher. I think it's embarrassing to see that. Yeah.
Right. So moving from can I go on? So moving from your secondary days to university, did you study here? Did you further education here from Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, or did you get the opportunity to travel back again? How was it like?
So I did the civil engineering program here in Kia University from 2002 to 2007. When I completed, I remember again, it goes back to how much of an influence Paul has been in my life. Because I remember the time when I was done, I think at some point we'll come to that, but I started a period of self-discovery following my, this experience I had in high school. Okay, so I think the reason GSS and SSS was so important psychologically was that it forced me to reconsider what I was basing my self-concept of as an individual. Besides, you are smart, your parents like you, the pastors like you, teachers like you. And I think in in undergrad, I went through the stage of self-discovery, like a very internal process, which I think a lot of undergrad students go through, where they are trying to figure out aspects of themselves which are uniquely theirs, without influence from what their parents taught them, what their pastors taught them, what they are supposed to be. So they are trying to figure out, who am I? What can I say I stand for? It was a very intense process for me during the undergrad, a very lonely process for me. I've written a lot about it now, try to understand what was really going on. But what I do remember in those days was, for me, it was a lot of what I struggled with back then in the day was what my system of morality, of morals, ought to consist of. And it happened primarily because I realized I had a moral paradigm that was very naive when I was in high school. And that naivety led to a lot of the pathologies that I experienced during that state of my life. So I needed to modify that.
Right.
Beat it. So anyway, so back in undergrad, I one of the things that during my soul discovery period was I began to develop a big interest on this.
Okay.
Part of it was because I read a book on that stage, one Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It came at a very, very, very serendipitous moments, which means at the right moment, because I am struggling with my values and my self-concept. And there's this guy who writes this book that seems to be addressing that problem. It was almost as if the book was written for me. So I devoured it, and I read it, I memorized the whole book, and I began to live it out, live it out on a day-to-day basis. And people who knew me back in the day asked me, what have you been reading? Because they could tell there was a difference.
Okay.
In me, and for me at that stage of my life, I needed that because it kept it together for me. And around the same time, I started engrossing myself a lot in the self-help literature of the 1990s. Books from Brian Tracy, books from Seven Habits, books especially in leadership and self-development stuff. Trying to become a better version of myself.
No, but hold on. I want to page into this. Let me ask this question. A Ghanaian guy finding himself in a Western world, a student.
Right.
How was the challenge? How was it like? The environment and everything. What were the challenges?
When I went overseas.
Yes.
Okay, so there is something you refer to as a cultural. They call it a culture shock.
Right.
And for me, I think my first culture shock. When I lived in Ghana, before I went to America, I was a middle class individual. I grew up in a middle class family. And my father at the time was, professor of civil care. And I think he was, he was a member of academia, a pretty, prestigious position in society. My mother was a high school English teacher. We were not struggling, and I would say that our status in Ghanaian society was pretty high. Going to live in America, I went to West Lafayette, Indiana. It was a very international school. Purdue was the third best program in civil engineering, the civil engineering program. So everybody there was the best of the best. But more to that, there was West Lafayette and there was Lafayette. Lafayette was a much more blue-collar society. West Lafayette was a much more, white-collar society.
Right.
And one of the first things I noticed, again, this is I understood what it meant to be a black man in rights. I know those are not very popular conversations, but it was true. And not because of anything anybody in particular did, right? But it was more just when people meet you, like before you open your mouth and say anything, they don't know who you are, right? They don't know what you've achieved. They don't know what your struggles are. They have no clue who you are dealing with. So they are going to really relate to you based on a stereotype that you created in your brain, which has been fed by all the experiences, personal experiences that fed by the media, all the experience they've had about people of your particular demographic throughout your lives. So again, that is not an indignation. It is not a that is not an indignation on them as people, but it's just the nature of the system that they grew up in. And so me as an individual having to experience that on a continuous basis, what I do remember is eventually culminated in me suffering some kind of a stress. I had a stress response, for which reason I had to defer my program.
Okay.
So I had to come back to Ghana
He came back to Ghana
for a semester.
Okay.
And this was after I got in. So I got into the US. Everybody was so excited for me. I was elated over the.
You had to defer your course for how many years? Like a year?
For a semester.
A year?
No, I deferred for only a semester. I went through my first year.
Okay.
But my stress induced issue abated my second semester, so I had to defer it for a semester.
Okay.
And I came back to Ghana. I came to recuperate.
Right.
I went back. I finished the program. It took me 2.5 years. Instead of the 3 years, course of that 1 year that I finished. It wasn't an easy. It was again. Purdue was the third best civil program, so it was a very difficult. It was a tough program. And again, there were multiple reasons why I had those issues, and I wanted to touch maybe about 3 or 4. Because and this is important because I know quite a few individuals are watching, academics who may also want to travel and we want to go through the educational experience. Now I know 2 people's experience in the US are the same. It's impossible for that to be the case. But I think there are some generics that cut across. So these are things you worry off before you make decisions regarding where to school, what programs to get into, and just what you should be. Because unfortunately, there's a lot about studying overseas that nobody's going to tell you about it. It's not something people tell us. It's just like a good analogy, right? It's like coming to do a program in KMRST. You get your admission, you're excited, but nobody tells you about all the trails that could potentially await some money to get it. Not because you're not working hard, but just because million and one reasons. So so I think the first challenge I had was the fact that because I was coming from Ghana, I was the only student to get into a program straight from Ghana. Everybody else came in from another country, another program. So there was very little to connect with them by way of common experiences. Yes, what the content of the course of your transcript says are the same. So obviously, the advisor reads it. You're taking Steel 1, he's taking Steel 1. You're taking RCB 1, he's taking RCB 1. So, there's no reason for them to think that there are differences in incorporation.
Okay.
But once you do getting and you actually do start working together, then you realize that you open Steel 1, you look at what they've actually done in class, and you realize that there are huge differences.
Okay. Doctor, I'll come back to you. Let me quickly acknowledge our sponsors again. If you're looking for a sweet, cool ambience, you can come to Jenna's Pizza to relax yourself. If you're looking for good food, pizza, anything, name it, you can come to Jenna's Pizza Restaurant and Grill. You can find Jenna's Pizza at these branches. It's Sihom, Konongo, Kumasi. So I'm going to mention the numbers and you can call and place your order. So in Sutam, you can call them on 0546109785 or 026-350-6265. Call them Suhom number 027-311-3666 or Konongo 02444408995. Or you can call them on Kumasi number 026-859-5222. So let's go on. So now you're back from overseas, or yes, you've studied, you've graduated, you're back in Ghana. How's it like? Why did you come?
Okay, so I have 3 graduate degrees, LLPs and 2 masters. So I want to talk about what happened after each degree.
Okay.
So after my master's degree,
Right.
I did try to find a job in the US.
Right.
I applied. I went to every interview I knew. Sometimes I travel miles into other cities, to see if I could get, employment. And go, they'd always fall through. And again, it's not because it was me, because there are so many people apply for the same jobs.
Right.
Moreover, I also had a disadvantage. When you are not, if you have there's something referred to as, when you graduate, you're on optional practical training. So you are given a 1-year option of finding a job in America. If you don't find that job, what typically happens is, if you do not find that job, what typically happens is, you either prepare to leave the country, or you could get married. If you get married, you could get the green card, and the green card allows you to stay and work in the US. Or you could get hired by a company. So a company will actually have to file an H-1B on your behalf. That means, and what it pretty much means is that, okay, we were not able to find anybody else with this person's qualification, so let's hire him. So it ensures that, employers are making sure that they are bringing you in. Your productivity is financial, makes sense financially or economically, right? So for me, I didn't have the green card at the time. I went for multiple interviews. I get to a point, they'd be looking, ask for a security clearance. So let's just say I didn't have the paperwork required to do that. I did try, other ways to get in. It just didn't work out. I had just a year to do that. So what happened was eventually, but the good news for me was that I had the opportunity to get my MBA at the Crane School of Management, which was an amazing experience. I consider my MBA experience, it probably was, I mean, I love civil engineering. I love engineering, but my MBA experience was, I'd say it's still my most pleasant educational experience. I really value, because I learned so many valuable things in F. Things I wish I had the opportunity to have learned earlier, but I just didn't. So I really value my MBA degree. After, again, I couldn't find a job in the US, so I came back to Ghana. I had to start from scratch. It was not fun because a lot of my colleagues who hadn't traveled, they had been in the Ghana, they built relationships, they were married, they had kids, they had all of that. And here I was pretty much trying to start from scratch. So I went back to my old company, civil engineering company, ABP Consult. I worked with them for about 3 years. I was also doing business development, some consulting here and there. And, you know, and I think at some point I decided, my dad advised that I get a PhD, so I was applying for PhD programs. I eventually got into the Trek program at KNUST, but right around that time, a professor, an advisor in the US, University of Wyoming, I sent my document. He advertised a certain PhD program. I looked at it and I'm like, this PhD program has all the things that I'm really interested in. I had the opportunity to build software, which I have a big passion for. It had some mathematical modeling and AI and all of that good stuff in there. So I challenged myself, like, why don't I try this? At the time, things weren't going too well for me in Ghana here. So I was like, okay, let me give America one last shot. So that was the mentality I had when I was going. I'm going to give America one. If I don't get a job, it doesn't work, then that's it. I'm not going to go back. So that's what I did. And the truth is, I'm glad that I did take that opportunity because I got the opportunity to. It was a very intense 2.5 years. I was supposed to do it in 4 years. I was able to finish it in just 2.5. But I was able to prove to myself that I could do it, which was the most important thing. Rebuilding my self-esteem after my experience at my master's. I took a semester longer to finish my master's, but I took a semester shorter to finish my PhD. So it rebuilt my confidence in that sense. And I also got the chance to build a tool which will save lives all over the world. It had to do a tool that was supposed to, cut down accidents, rate of accidents all over the world. So for me, that's something I'm really, really proud of.
Okay.
So when I was done, I had a chance to work in America with the government, but
For a while.
It was a whole OPT thing. But the truth is, I made a decision.
Right.
At that point, I stood there. I asked myself some very, very, and I can tell you the thought process if it will.
Because of time, we don't have much time. But you can actually brief us on it. Just a little.
Very well. It's going to be like 2 sentences.
Right.
Deciding whether I should come back to Ghana or not. Okay, so what happened was, at the time, I was not doing too well because of the stress of the PhD. And I remember I was trying to solve a problem, very difficult problem. And it took me 3 days. I was still struggling with it. And I fell sick one day. I went home. I came back the following day. The problem had been solved by someone else. I saw it and I told myself, take it however you take it. I told myself, if I'm struggling with this problem and somebody can come in and do it, again, I was at entry level. Someone can do it and finish it in just this short amount of time, I probably will not be valued here as much. So I decided that I was going to go back to Ghana and at least find a career in a place that I would actually be valued, not in a sense that I wouldn't find people that weren't smart enough to do what was done there. But I felt like my story could touch a lot of young lives throughout the entire gradient of the educational experience in Ghana.
Right. So we come back to you being here in Ghana now.
Right.
So you're a doctor. Doctor of what?
Of civil engineering.
Civil engineering. So you now work with KNUST, Kuma University of Science and Technology.
That is correct.
And I'm sure you enjoy your stay, you being here and working with Ghana and then Ghana government out there. And we appreciate you, whatever it is that you went and studied and thought about our country, and you're here to also make a good impact on our youth to help build a better Ghana.
Right.
Okay. So on that, I'll say thank you. And our final questions to be like one or two, and then we'll wrap up. What are some of us? What are some of the expectations? Some of the things that we should actually expect as you being here, and what you're planning on next, and what your intentions are. Are you intending to stay here for long, or you tend to go back anytime soon? We want to know. And whatever it is that you want to put in place or you're putting in place, could you please brief us on that so that at least we know what you're about?
My intention is to stay in the long term. I mean, even if I have to go, it will probably be, let's say, sometimes you go on, you get called to go and lecture somewhere else. But I want KNUS to be my academic home. I mean, I've studied at Purdue, I studied at Wyoming, I studied at University of New Hwadu. I traveled all around the world. I want to take all the learning, all the experience, and give it to my country. So I want to be domiciled here in Ghana.
Right.
And right. So I have created a theme,
right,
for my contribution to the country. Anyway, most PhDs that are mentored from the United States have a catchphrase, right? Mine is Dr. Emergency Exit Ramp. So in place of Dr. Ampadu, you can also call me Dr. EER. And mine is Dr. EER, Dr. Emergency Exit Ramp. So what I built was something in the emergency exit ramp space. Mine is transforming lives, building global communities. That is the theme of my work. So I really want to help and it's in my area, civil engineering. That's all we are about,
Right.
We are providing habitable, we are trying to enhance the habitation of individuals in our spaces that we have, especially as a developing country. So how can we transform the lives of people? And how do we build global communities in that process? Like right now is the gap between, America, the UK, Italy, Ghana is so small. With social media, people can be there, and people are using apps and YouTube to be learning things that people all over the world. So it's like the gaps no longer exist anymore. So my job really is to facilitate the process, especially as an educator, is to help to facilitate the process through which young people, receive, regulate, and assimilate the knowledge that they are getting on all these other platforms. So I think that for me, that's my watchword.
Right. That's beautiful. That's an amazing thought. And also, I'd like to ask this: are you into music? Because I know that Dr. Azuri, right? He's also into music.
Yes, I am also into music. Yes.
Wow, that's quite brilliant. But we'll find time. I think we should find time and then maybe meet with Dr. Azuri when he's in town, whenever he's in time. I wanna catch that zeal between you two. I wanna know that story. I want to
feel the dynamic.
I want to exactly.
Dynamic
actually, that's the word. And then we'll elaborate on a few things. But then anyway, I'll say thank you for coming. Thank you for coming to my show. And I'm so grateful to have you on the show. I'll say that I'll see you again. It's not a goodbye. Bye-bye is not a goodbye. I'll see you again. Thank you so much, Dr. Vincent.
Thank you so much for having me. It's definitely an honor.
Okay, so we acknowledge our sponsors. That's Ginex Pizza Restaurant and Girls. So if you're looking for a place to wine and dine, a beautiful place, Ginex Pizza Restaurant is a place to be. You can find Ginex Pizza at Institutum Suhum Konongo Kumase. And I'll put out the number so that you can call. You can call Institutum 0546 109785 or 026 350 6265. Suhum 027 311 3666. Konongo 02444 08995 or Kumasi 026 85 95222. Also, Imperial College of Mines and Safety. Please call them 0242264412. Connie Beauty Zone, she made me up with this beautiful hair. You can find Connie at the Sumansa Market. So her number is 0594373696. Please do call Connie. Thank you. So we are wrapping up. This is Beyond the Boardroom. My name is Eve Jeet. Same time, same place. We'll see you again. Bye.